I wanted to get into some of the latest statements from Sam Harris, and we're going to begin with what he had to say about famine. And I just want to let you guys all know that the clip you're about to watch was edited to include footage, basically disproving what Sam Harris says. Let's take a look.
Israel, I think, briefly suspended food shipments, which strategically was totally unwise, although it might have been defensible, at that level of the war. But the photos that documented the famine, so-called famine in Gaza, some of which won Pulitzer Prizes, or at least one of which one of these photographers won a Pulitzer Prize for this fake photo. It was absolute fakery, right? This was a psyop. No one was starving in Gaza, right? And insofar as there was massive food insecurity, a lot of that was Hamas stealing food and hoarding it.
Well, that is what Sam Harris believes about the situation in Gaza. No famine. And to disprove what he's saying, we cut in some footage showing what the reality in Gaza really is. And to his point about restricting aid into the Gaza Strip, Israel restricted any aid, not a drop of food, no water, nothing, entered the Gaza Strip for 3 months straight. 3 months. And that was after aid was severely restricted to begin with. So, Dave, Sam Harris makes a statement like that, but on top of that statement, he put out a notice, a statement on his Substack titled, "Why I Won't Debate Critics of Israel," a note to the Making Sense community. And I believe the reason why he won't engage in a debate is because he knows what the reality really is, and he would get his ass handed to him. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, come bring that clip into a debate and we'll see how that goes. I mean, it's something, one of the things I just always think about when I see this, and when I see a lot of things from Sam Harris, is like, his whole new atheist thing that was all about how irrational religion can lead to these really horrible outcomes. And you're like, I guess atheism can get you there too. It could get you right to the point where you got to defend. I mean, like, not that I don't even consider Sam Harris to be an atheist. This is a different religion here, whatever this is. There's been dozens of doctors who have testified, have written. There was a huge New York Times piece putting all of this together about massive food insecurity, many cases of starvation. The Free Press rebuttal was that it was like the sicker kids who were starving first. Even though the sicknesses, by the way, one of the particular sicknesses that they talked about, at least the mother said that the doctors told her it was because she was malnourished during pregnancy, was why. Anyway, even if you just think about the logic, right, as you correctly pointed out, he says, oh yeah, they did deny food for a little while, which was maybe strategically not wise. Okay, a little while was 3 months, with Smotrich openly saying not 1 ounce of grain will get into Gaza, and it didn't. And think about this, by the way, because I've seen this asserted. I have not read anything that backs this up. Perhaps it's out there and I just haven't seen it. But I've seen a lot of the Israel supporters assert that Hamas is stealing all this food. Now, that might be true. I would imagine that the toughest gang in Gaza would end up with their share of the aid that ends up getting in, much as the case with contraband in prison in general. So what? So imagine that's the case. Okay, so you're telling me Hamas is stealing the food and your response to that is to cut off the aid coming in? So in other words, Hamas is fine. We're not punishing them. We're not starving out Hamas. We're exclusively punishing the civilian population. And Sam Harris can try to spin this in whatever way he wants to, but maybe you don't like the term genocide. The world leading genocide scholars seem to think it's appropriate, but maybe you don't like that term. But what is this term war? Where's the other military? What military is it? What state is Israel at war with? I thought Jerry Seinfeld just told me there's no such thing as Palestine. So how is Israel at war with them? They're not at war with another army or an air force or a navy, because Gaza doesn't have any of that. And so what are you talking about here, man? You're talking about the most powerful military in the region systematically destroying a people that they've held captive for 59 years.
Yeah, Dave, I'll tell you why he doesn't want to debate anyone on this. I'm going to give you one excerpt from what he wrote in that Substack post. Let's go to graphic 5 here, everyone. For over a decade, Hamas diverted foreign aid that was meant to improve life in Gaza and used it to build the largest bomb shelter our species has ever constructed. Hundreds of miles of tunnels, and yet no Palestinian civilians were allowed to shelter there during the war. So understand what he is conceding to in that statement. What he is conceding to is that Israel leveled the entirety of the Gaza Strip, which would overwhelmingly kill and maim civilians, knowing that the Hamas militants that they're allegedly targeting are safe underground in the tunnels. That's what he's admitting to.
Yeah, the logic of it is so sociopathic. It's like, look, there was a hostage situation down at the local bank, and you don't understand how evil this guy holding these people hostage is. He built a tunnel underneath the bank so that he wouldn't get hurt, and so we blew up the bank full of civilians. Like, wait, what? Like,
it's crazy.
Your whole point here is that the civilians are only the victims of Hamas. But then Israel's going to slaughter all of them because they're the victims of Hamas. Well, then I guess they're the victims of both of them now, aren't they? By the way, I should mention this since we're doing this segment, because I saw you did a segment on Sam Harris not that long ago that I saw, maybe like a month or two ago. And you had a clip about him talking about me that I had never seen before. And I'd seen several of his clips, but I know you've covered some of them. He always just insults me and never takes on anything I'm saying. That's kind of the game. And this is why he won't debate. But you had the clip where he said, I never heard him say, where he goes, look, I watched Douglas Murray debate Dave Smith, and Douglas Murray just tore him apart. He totally won. I couldn't have done a better job myself. And then I look at the comments, and it's not that 90% of them agree with Dave. It's that 100% of them agree with Dave. And there was something so look, I'm not saying it's not logically impossible that could happen, that someone could do a really great job in a debate and 100% of the audience thinks they did a terrible job. But you would think it would probably lead you to rethink some things. Like, if you saw that, you would probably go, maybe he could have been more effective, seeing as how the response was that. But in other words, this is why I was telling you off air, I love this, because this is just blatant for everyone to see. It's retreatism. It's just, look, you could just convince yourself in your mind that you're winning this debate, which is what all the Zionists do, isn't it right, Anna? Every single time you have a debate, all the Zionists go, Anna Kasparian got destroyed in this debate, even though the vast majority of the comments are in your favor. And even though Israel's popularity keeps going down and down and down, and every time a Jewish organization or a Zionist organization has a meeting, the whole thing they're discussing is how we're losing this propaganda war. What do we have to do about Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens and Anna Kasparian and all these people? And what? But every time they have a debate, they act like they won it. But everyone else sees what's happening. And so the reason Sam won't come debate anyone or even just have a conversation with any of us is because he knows that 100% of the audience will see through his.
So I'm going to go ahead and read what his rationale is, and then I'm going to go right through it. So I'll start with the graphics, and then we'll go to this B-roll, because as I read the excerpts of his argument, I want you guys to actually see with your own two eyes what has transpired in both Gaza and the West Bank. So he says, many readers and podcast listeners have been dismayed by my enduring support for Israel and now urge me to debate someone, really anyone, drawn from a growing cast of scholars, grifters, and moral lunatics who have made that beleaguered country their professional or psychiatric obsession. My general attitude, I'm not interested in exploring all the ways that Israel has missed the mark, from Prime Minister Netanyahu's corrupt alliance with the far right, to the many crimes committed by settlers in the West Bank, to the deaths of innocent non-combatants in several wars. Because none of these failings, however grave, will alter my sense that, one, the ethical difference between Israel and her enemies remains vast. And two, the global preoccupation with the Jewish state, as though it were the worst villain among nations, is contemptible, being the product of perennial lies and delusions. Now, I'm going to keep reading what he wrote. Then he starts laying this out, okay? He says the following: I think militant Islam is 10 times worse than you think it is. When I talk about jihadists and their various groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, the IRGC, etc., I'm talking about people who I consider to be worse than Nazis. My views about the conflict in the Middle East will not fundamentally change unless my critics produce evidence, you're looking at it right now, that Israel has become as evil as her enemies. You can rest assured that if the IDF morphs into a death cult that uses its own civilian population as human shields, if the residents of Tel Aviv condone, as they have, the taking of Palestinian infants, old women, and other non-combatants as hostages, if, in no other words, the Israelis begin to resemble the Palestinians, then I won't care who wins this war. If we're being honest, we must concede that there are two very different realities on either side of this conflict: culturally, psychologically, ethically, spiritually, in every way that matters. Yes, Israel has its religious fanatics too, but they aren't the same sort of fanatics we find in Hamas and Hezbollah. By the way, some of that footage was put out by B'Tselem, which is an Israeli human rights organization. So that's the real reason why Sam Harris doesn't want to engage in a debate, because and this is the thing that's so sick about it, Dave. He knows the truth. He knows the truth, and he's okay with it. He's totally fine with what's going on in the Middle East. He doesn't want to say that out loud. He doesn't want to be on camera saying that out loud, but he knows it. And he does support it. And so that's why he doesn't want to engage in a debate.
Yeah, no, that's right. And he has always, and he's always, I've really always hated Sam Harris so much. I've from way back in the day, and he was so big. And this is like even before I started podcasting or anything like that. But I always just hated all of his horse anti-Muslim arguments and even all of that. And I did not think, he's actually, I think, a pretty smart guy. But Ben Affleck just did not do a good job debating him on Bill Maher's show, and he just kind of screeched at him too much. And Cenk actually did a much better job when they sat down and had that long debate back in the day that like blew up the internet. But it was always arguments. Like it was always this like, oh, jihadists aren't all of the Muslims, but look what percentage of them are sympathetic to them. Look what percentage of them believe this or believe that, which is like the weakest argument ever. I mean, it's like in the same sense that you could make an argument about America, like our version of jihadists are neocons. They're people who just always want to blow up, always want to kill people. We got Lindsey Graham. He's a member of the Senate. He always wants to bomb more things and kill more people. And so, of course, you see this here. All Sam is doing is just demonizing the other side and then whitewashing his side. It's the simplest, oldest trick in the book. Israel does about 80% of the things that he listed there, by the way. Maybe not every last one of them, but they take a ton of Palestinian hostages. They openly talk about how they're Amalek and less than human and all this stuff. So again, he has to just distract instead of like actually taking on the argument.
And it's not working. And look, what did we hear? I can't remember if it was Bezalel Smotrich or Ben Gvir. It must have been Smotrich. Actually, don't quote me on that. But one of them just this week talked about, oh, we need to kidnap Lebanese women and children to demoralize Lebanon. That's what he said. They say it out loud. And again, Sam knows this. He knows it. He knows that modern day Israel is, you want to say that they're not as bad as, a jihadist group. I would say they're definitely on the level, if not worse at this moment, because they're the ones with the power. They're the ones who have a military superpower backing them and giving them 2,000-pound bombs to drop on children's heads. How are you going to argue that the Israelis are the moral ones when they just carried out he won't say it's a genocide, but that same Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem, they said that it is. They said that it's a genocide. So I don't know. Do I believe the Israelis who actually have a moral compass here, or do I believe this guy who's pretending to be an atheist and some sort of intellectual? Like, what kind of intellectualism is this if you refuse to engage in the debate? And he's pretending to be ignorant here, right? When he's saying, when he's making those comparisons, but he's not ignorant. He knows what's going on. He knew about the blockade, 3-month-long blockade of humanitarian aid into Gaza, and he downplayed it intentionally.
Yeah, and even like by his own stated framework, you're like, oh, just I hate the Muslims so much. I think they're worse than Nazis. And of course, you realize he just blends them all together. It's the problem in Palestine is jihad, and the problem in the Muslim world is jihad. It's all like kind of the same thing. It's like, all right, well, I'm certainly not denying that there are major problems in the Muslim world, but has he ever spoken out against any of our alliances with the worst offenders of that? I mean, it's the female genital mutilation in Kurdistan is horrific. Those are like our closest allies in Iraq and have been for many years. The human rights abuses of Saudi Arabia are just like off the charts. And there's, but it's not the Muslims versus the Jews over there. That's not what's happening. We're in bed with all the Sunni Gulf states. We're in bed, it's majority US sock puppets over there. Some of the absolute worst human rights abusers. And even the worst of the Iranian Shiite militias were the ones that we put in charge in Iraq. They were the ones we were fighting with that George W. Bush launched a whole war on behalf of. Of course, we mentioned before Obama supporting the head choppers and Al-Qaeda and ISIS over there. And even if you want to say like Bashar al-Assad and any of those guys are bad too, well, we were in business with them up until we weren't. We propped up Mubarak in Egypt for 40 years. And so even if he wants to make this argument, well, where's all of your outrage about that? Oh, that's right. You don't have it. It's just the Palestinians. It's just this one stateless group of people who nobody else sticks up for. The problem is that they're all a bunch of jihadists or something like that. It's garbage. Yeah. It's just dehumanizing. It's the worst aspect of humanity. It's demonizing a group of people who are being abused in the most vicious way.
Dave, I appreciate your voice. I appreciate how passionate you are about this issue and just about history. So please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for coming on.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.